Well, so far we've been talking about the ways, Chinese agents will come to the U.S. to get information. But like for economic espionage, I imagine a lot of situations are where foreign companies go into China, have to sign, have to enter there as a joint venture with a Chinese company. Is most of this economic espionage happening through these joint ventures?
Okay, so just to be clear, let's call that a tremendous transfer of technology, but not bona fide espionage, right? It's not something that we would call espionage. However, that said, China has been renowned in violation of the WTO and a number of other statements that they've made publicly that they have forced technology transfer from Western companies. It's a very regular practice. It's a hallway conversation in China. In fact, I know one company that lost their technology, their machining techniques, as a Chinese company arose as a competitor after they had been there 5 years or so. And they did get the opportunity to talk to the Chinese company and actually visit them. And not only was their machinery reproduced, but it was down to the serial numbers on that machinery.
Wow. Really?
I mean, they actually even copied the serial numbers that were on the U.S. firm's machinery. So that type of theft is just pervasive. The fact that the Chinese government requires people to use a government-approved VPN is done very, very specifically to allow them access to communications. So the fact that you have to maintain data inside China is all done, so that the Chinese government, the CCP, can have access to foreign technology, foreign trade secrets, and foreign data.
So I guess,
there was a case with American Superconductor Corp, what was making the wind turbines. And then they had to, I guess, joint venture with Sinovel, and then Sinovel ripped off everything. And now basically all the wind turbines that we have in America are made in China because of this technology transfer, right?
In that case, they took their control, their software, where they had a 10-year contract for doing the software control mechanisms, which is a big part of wind turbines. China stole that. We saw the same thing in the solar power industry, where China stole the solar power cell manufacturing techniques from the United States, and then the government subsidized Chinese companies for making it. And we saw the same thing in the steel industry. And the steel industry manufacturing techniques were cyber attacked. And all these three, in fact, were prosecuted out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And they stole, American manufacturing techniques, and then, flooded the market with steel to destroy the United States capability. In each case, thousands of jobs were lost.
Who knew all this green energy would be so red?
I think about this like every time I drive through Palm Springs, and you see these thousands of wind turbines and solar energy, and everyone's like, we're so green. But actually, it's that money being spent on that. A lot of that money is basically going to fund
I wonder,
Chinese
though, those
companies.
Specific windmills have been there for a long time, so I don't know specifically where those came from.
That could be true.
Yeah. But so I guess the big question with this is this just like individual Chinese companies seeing an opportunity, or is this being driven by the state, by the Chinese state?
Well, the state sets the need and the requirements. And we see that in documents like Made in China 2025, a roadmap for space science and technology to 2050, agricultural roadmap for, to 2050. The state at the CCP level, working with state council and academia, defines those requirements. And then it basically instructs the state-owned enterprises and the Chinese bureaucracy to go after it. And the companies and the universities it's economically prosperous for them to go after that because the Chinese government will pay for it. They can set up industries. They know that's what China needs and will pay for to develop its economy. So it's an extraordinary capitalist system of espionage.
So let's dig into Made in China 2025 a bit, because I remember when that first came out, it was like 2015, and we did an episode about that. Remember the whole Made in China 2025, and then weirdly, it got really bad publicity for China, and then they kind of stopped announcing that this was a thing, but they didn't actually stop doing Made in China 2025. They just stopped publicizing that that's what they were doing.
Right. Of course.
So how much? And so now it's been like 8 years since they announced it, pretty much. And how much of the economic espionage that we're seeing is related to Made in China 2025?
Easy to answer, at least for me. Out of these 720 cases that I have listed, 500 of them are directly correlated to specific technologies required in Made in China 2025.
Wow.
So not all of them.
What are the other ones up to?
Exactly. Well, so what gets me about this is it seems like this is essentially an open secret, and yet you still have foreign companies going into China, signing these joint ventures. Why do they keep doing this?
Yeah, Elon Musk.
You know what? I do have those conversations with companies sometimes. I have the conversation with the security people of companies as well. In some senses, there's a lot of profound ignorance on the part of our senior officials. There's our senior company officials. There's a very American mentality, win-win, partner. We're there to share, and they don't understand the perspective of China walking into this. So I'd say that's number one, just the attitude and the approach. Number two is some companies have been quite successful. And up until recently, take Apple as an example. I mean, Apple comes out with a new iPhone every 18 months. So by the time that iPhone is copied, the technology stolen, copied, reproduced, and put out in the Chinese market of pirated goods, Apple's already announcing, the next iPhone that's coming out. So, they stay ahead of the curve and have for years now. So that's another way of addressing it. But if your company isn't able to do that, isn't capable of doing that, and I've talked to many of them that have lost everything in China because of that.
Well, so let's take a look at Tesla, because Tesla went into China a few years ago, and then over the last couple of years, we started to see the battery technology being developed by local Chinese companies. And we're starting to see Chinese-made electric vehicles now outselling Teslas in China. So is this espionage? Is this just technology transfer? Like, what's going on here?
Well, I'll say again, it's the attitude of the U.S. company going in and understanding what type of environment that they're in. I know a little about the Tesla case, but Tesla already had lawsuits and criminal actions against individuals who were working for XPeng, the Chinese electric car manufacturer, who took 20,000 documents on the way out, things like that. So there were already indicators for Tesla that this could be a problem. However, Tesla makes its technology open. It doesn't really hide it. It makes its technology open as it develops it. So it just believes it's ahead of the curve in a name and a reputation that it goes in selling its cars. Where it's just starting to feel a pinch is now as the Chinese electric car industry is developing. Now we're doing things like, Teslas can't go here and they can't go there because they have cameras and collect information, and government can't buy Teslas. So the Chinese Communist Party is just starting to turn the screws on Tesla, which will ultimately, in years from now, force them out of business as the Chinese electric car industry matures and takes over.
So what is the U.S. government doing about the fact that essentially China has declared economic warfare on American companies?
The U.S. government's response tends to be very, very tactical. So you have a lot of money flowing, a lot of agencies doing this or doing that and trying to stand up to meet the challenge. But if you ask any senior policy official, say, what's our vision for the relationship with China 10 years from now? They don't know. They can't even think in that sense. So we don't approach the problem strategically, moving all the mechanisms of government to be able to address our relationship with China. whether it be countering their espionage or their economic warfare or any other aspect of their military actions. Everything's a very individual part of the U.S. response, but there is no strategic part. And as you know, China's already declared its strategy, up until 2049. So it is a strategic thinker. And this is in many ways why we're being outplayed.